All right, personality. Everyone's got it. We all know kind of what it is. Let's define it now, shall we? According to our Lord and Savior Google-sama, the definition of personality is the combination of characteristics or qualities that form an individual's distinctive character. Now, what exactly does this entail? Well, let me tell you. Obviously, everyone is different. We've all got our quirks. To begin, let's talk about the question. Are you born with personality, or is it developed over time? So, personality can be made up of individual traits that develop throughout a person's lifetime. To make it simpler to understand, psychologist Gordon Allport categorized the multitude of traits into 3 different categories: cardinal, central, and secondary. Cardinal traits, being the dominant traits, are later developed in life usually, and have the potential of becoming what the person is specifically known for. They are oftentimes most noticeable upon first encounters. For example, Mother Teresa is associated with wholesomeness, goodness, and charity. We all know that. And essentially, when we refer to her, we're referring to those traits. She's known for that. And on the flip side, Adolf Hitler is associated with evil and the embodiment of ruthlessness and depravity. So, there's 2 sides to the same coin. Let's continue on. Central traits are the general and basic foundations of someone's personality. Some examples being shyness, honesty, intelligence, etc. They're often what is most spoken about when it comes to explaining somebody. So in other words, it's like those traits that you use to justify your crush on someone in kindergarten. Hey Jimmy, what do you like about Cassie? Oh, she's nice, cool, funny, smart. Secondary traits appear when someone is confronted with a specific situation. These forms of traits are essentially what makes someone unique. For example, someone could be anxious and upset and have the strong urge to implode on the spot when confronted with the idea of presenting in front of the class. Or on the flip side, someone may be overjoyed to present in front of the class. I'm definitely not one of those people, but they exist somewhere, somehow. And in contrast, that is what makes people different, and it's what kind of gives someone their reputation, besides general central traits that have already been discussed and are commonly known amongst the general population. So, back in ye olden days, or not so olden days, depending on who you are and what you believe, some people think that personality traits are rarely subject to change and that they're set in stone and hardly ever altered. But research and studies have also, been able to kind of disprove that idea. In fact, various principles and studies have actually shown that personality traits can be subject to change through environmental factors like life experiences and trauma and such, simply because it changes the way one perceives the world and, alters their perspective of themselves. For example, the death of a loved one can really show how one reacts when confronted by such a traumatic event. Some people are able to receive help and heal and strive to get better, while others react in much darker ways and aren't able to recover as quickly as someone with a more positive outlook on life. It is important to keep in mind that everyone is different and that not everyone will react in the same way to the same traumatic experience. In addition to the idea that personality traits can be subject to change through life experiences, personality traits have also been shown to have been passed down through genetics. One study observed sets of identical and fraternal twins who were either separated at birth or raised in the same household. It was later found that identical twins both share very similar personality traits, regardless of being raised together or apart. It is important to keep in mind that identical twins have identical DNA, and therefore most likely share the same genetic personality traits. In conclusion to this study, it is said that sets of identical twins shared a 50% similarity in personality traits, and fraternal twins shared about 20%. Therefore, it is suggested that there is some form of genetic compound that largely impacts a person's personality. However, it is impossible to say that a person's personality is solely developed throughout life, or even with genetics. Personality traits are complex and simply derive from both genetic and environmental factors. These 2 components are what makes someone unique, regardless of their origin. But that brings us to the question: can your personality change? This, yet again, is another subject that is different for everyone. So, without going into too much detail, in companionship with trauma, mental illness can change how the body thinks and reacts to certain situations, thus changing one's behaviors and consequently changing one's personality. Researcher Kay Fink conducted a study on victims of Nazi concentration camps and found that despite all of their varying pre-traumatic histories, their post-traumatic histories, and screenings all showed similar depressive personality structures and behavioral patterns when coping with intrusive memories and other symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. In addition, dissociative personality disorder doesn't necessarily change one's personality, but instead allows at least two or more to reside within a singular host. Not surprisingly, adolescence can also change many things about a person, for if not all of the body is changing at once and can also change personality as a result. This period of time is usually described as essential for figuring out one's personality and traits and what makes them who they are. Studies have been done to prove that personality does indeed stabilize over the course of maturation and adulthood. Commonly used examples that support these ideas are the infamous spectrums of phases of teenagehood. Emo or prep phases, along with spicy teenage fangirls, regardless of gender, have been known to occur and are witnessed in an extensive range of individuals. Yes, as you can see, that is me as an emo. I regret everything. Thank you very much. Now, considering these other questions, we move on to our next question. Does your personality dictate how you interact with others? A theory called social cognitive perspective emphasizes cognitive processes like thinking and judging in the development of personality. Personality researcher Walter Mischel, I don't know. What is that? I don't know. I can't pronounce anything.
Michelle.
Suggests that one's behavior is majorly influenced and dependent upon situational cues. Once again, traumatic incidences can have the power to create lasting changes on one's personality and lifestyle. This idea supports perspectives that greatly differ from those that say personality is simply an independent and influenced set of traits that remain constant in any and all situations. Some may say that despite trauma, your true personality will stay the same and cannot be influenced by anything of the sort. Mischel observed reliable patterns of behavior that highlighted if-then situational behavior relations that create significant impacts on one's personality. In other words, he examined situations in which one situation would occur and then a resulting behavior or occurrence would take place. Mischel's theories support the idea that cognitive processes similar or identical to these allow for learned behaviors to become a part of one's personality, whether for better or worse. For example, an individual may have a certain role model or peer that they love and admire, consequently resulting in them wanting to be more like that special person. This individual could aim to do more charity work like their idol, or simply put emphasis on traits that they already have that are similar to those of their role models in order to be more like them, and probably end up becoming more naturally generous or a caring person because they conditioned themselves to be that way, consequently resulting in a personality change. The theory of social cognitive perspective does not simply affect one's social interaction through personality changes, but also emphasizes on already existing personality traits and behaviors as previously mentioned. Discussion on behaviors and influence on personality brought about a new method of talk therapy that can also be applied to one's daily life. The practice of transactional analysis entails that individuals can be aware of how one's personality traits naturally affect behavior and their own abilities in interacting with others. Eric Byrne, MD, creator of TA, focuses on the experience of transaction and stroke. Not this kind of transaction, and definitely not this kind of stroke. The transaction, in Byrne's terms, is defined as the fundamental unit of social intercourse, say an encounter with an old friend at a grocery store. And a stroke, in Byrne's terms, is defined as the fundamental unit of social action, say how you respond to seeing your old friend in the grocery store. So, I guess you could actually have a stroke. Going back to Byrne, as he began to study this amongst his own patients, he began to observe that 3 ego states were present in all of them. As Byrne gained confidence in this theory, he went on to introduce these in a paper he published in 1957, 1 year before he published his seminal paper introducing transactional analysis. It was originally thought a therapist could use TA during sessions with patients in order to avoid simply relying on asking patients questions in order to understand them. Byrne would often observe the patient in a social setting, mainly one taking place with a group, and take note of the patient's body language, methods of speaking, facial expressions, etc., in this particular setting between them and the people surrounding them. The main point of this exercise is so that the therapist may look beyond what is being said in order to identify feelings and problems the patient may have. Notes from these transactions that took place could be used to identify what Byrne liked to refer to as, once again, the ego states, which can be described as a consistent pattern of feeling and experience that corresponds with an identifiable pattern of consistent behavior. Byrne was able to come up with 3 ego states: parent, adult, and child. It is important to realize that while these words may belong to their standard definitions, Byrne has chosen to associate these words with different concepts when mentioned in this context. The parent represents a collection stored in the brain of external events experienced by an individual. Since the majority of the external events experienced by a child are actions of the parent, the ego state was appropriately called parent. The child represents a collection of internal events stored in the brain that correspond with the external experiences, so mainly referring to thoughts, feelings, and perspectives. Lastly, the adult ego state allows one to evaluate and process the information received in the other states on the basis of past experience. In other words, the adult allows the young person to evaluate and validate child and parental data. Byrne describes the adult as being principally concerned with transforming stimuli into pieces of information and processing and filing information on the basis of previous experience. Thanks for watching this video. Like and subscribe for more quality educational memes, am I right? That was the worst sentence I've ever said. Anyways, if you like this video, make sure to check out my other ones. And if you're here from my health class, you guys should watch my YouTube videos. Be supportive people and help me out with that. I know this is supposed to be a group project, but I just needed to do a shameless self-plug. So thanks for coming to my TED Talk. See you guys later. Bye!